And we are live. Excellent. All right. To all of you out there, be it that you are joining us live or be it that you are watching the replay, today I'm here with Judy Schramm of ProResource. Um, Judy, as well, is a LinkedIn specialist, LinkedIn branding specialist. So we're going to have a really interesting conversation about the different ways and the different conversations around that for different populations or different audiences. Welcome to the show, Judy. I'm very excited to have you. And this has been a while coming. So thanks for your patience.
No, I'm thrilled to be here. I've been looking forward to this.
Excellent. Very good. Me too, because I have a lot of questions for you. So I was just telling Judy before we went on live that I normally don't prepare questions because I just sort of like the flow of conversation going to where it is supposed to go. But for Judy, I do have some questions because I think I want to make sure I hit on a couple of things that I'm really interested in hearing the answers to. So we're both LinkedIn experts, Judy, but we serve a very different group of people. So that's where I'm sort of interested in exploring those similarities and the differences there. So let's start with, who do you actually serve? Who is your ideal client?
So typically we work in the technology industry, and we work with CEOs of smaller companies and then vice presidents and CXOs at larger ones.
Yep. Okay. And hi, Dan. So Dan has joined us and is watching us. Dan is also a very prolific LinkedIn lifer. He has a wonderful show about the workplace fit, I think it's called, and he's been at it for years and years and years. And he has a really he's one of the people who gets it, that consistency pays off in life and on LinkedIn in particular. All right. So CEOs of smaller companies and then C-suite executives on the bigger companies. So when you say smaller companies, because for me, smaller companies, what we serve is sort of the 100,000 to, let's say, 750,000 revenue income. I would imagine when you say small company, you're probably talking a little bigger than that, right?
I am. We're typically, we've gone as low as maybe 1 to 2 million. But yep, for the most part, we're in the 5 to 10 million for the CEOs. Usually we're working with CEOs of funded startups.
Okay.
And so they're usually into revenue. They're not pre-revenue, and, things are rolling. They've figured out their branding message. They've figured out their ICP, they know what they're doing, and now they're crafting the CEO's brand in support of that.
In support of it. Right. So, I've got so many questions, I don't even know where to start. So the CEO's brand, I think that's something that smaller companies might not even deal with, or don't have even the breadth and width and headspace to deal with, right? Very often with the companies I work with, the CEO or the solopreneur is the brand, right? So there is really no real separation there. How does that look differently once you are in a bigger company where the CEO actually takes on, a role of not being in the business, but working on the business?
So the biggest shift is that the CEO is no longer the only person responsible for lead gen.
Yeah.
In the early stage, the CEO wears almost all the hats. And then as the business grows, those hats get transferred to other people. So one of the big things that we see is that other people are responsible for sales and marketing. And at that point, the CEO really retains the hat of thought leader and visionary, but does not have to worry about, is everything, part of a funnel, or is it, do I have calls to action everywhere? They're really focused on education and on building the employer brand, because recruiting is a huge part of growing a tech company.
Right. So now there's a whole other layer of elements that are coming in. To actually sounds really lovely. Like, imagine I didn't have to worry about my effing funnels and CTAs. Wow. Maybe you should grow the company. Anyway, so So what are the conversations? What is the educational piece that you need to bring to the table to convince your CEO or your executive to take the whole personal branding seriously on LinkedIn?
Well, part of it is their audience on LinkedIn.
Yeah.
And since we live in the technology industry, that's usually pretty safe bet that their audience is on LinkedIn.
Yeah.
But there are nuances, right? Some of the healthcare tech and, some of manufacturing. Sometimes those people are not as much on LinkedIn as if you're doing, some kind of sales or, just core business related technology. So first of all, we want to see, is your audience on LinkedIn? And then we want to see, is there a thought leadership component? And in technology, there almost always is. Because if you think of, kind of the universe of your target market, in technology, very often the biggest part of your market does not know their problem can be solved, right? You work your way in from not even knowing you have a problem to knowing you have a problem, but not knowing there's a solution, to knowing there's a problem and that it can be solved, to, well, of the various ways of solving it, this is why I want to solve it this way. And then, in the center, I'm willing to pay what you want to pay, and I'm willing to, I'm ready to move, and so there are a lot of industries where the solution is known. If you want a CRM, for example, or if you want healthcare, right, or to buy a book, that can be done. Yeah. But there are a lot of cutting edge things that are happening, especially with AI, that people don't even know. And so is there a big educational component? And if their audience is on LinkedIn and there is a big educational component, then usually it's not a hard sell.
Yep, I would imagine. But then is it a conversation about, I would imagine their company branding is in place, right? In most cases.
Usually, it might be evolving.
Yeah.
Typically early stage companies, the branding is evolving.
Is evolving for sure. I mean, well, it probably always should be evolving, right? Even if you're a little later, further down the road. So how do you go about working with a CEO or a C-suite to I mean, you want to bring in your personal brand, meaning your personality, but you're still doing it on behalf of a company, right? And I think it would be probably easier to do it, and correct me if I'm wrong, if it's a CEO of his own company, but probably yet again a completely different conversation when you are a C-suite level executive in a company that is not your company. So I would imagine those being very different conversations you're having.
They are. Yeah, and it depends on the role. So if you're talking C-suite or VP in sales, marketing, biz dev, that's one conversation. If you're talking CHRO, that's a different conversation. If you're talking CFO in a company that's planning to IPO, then you're having yet another conversation.
So how do you figure out the personal branding for somebody who's not, who's not the CEO of his own business?
Well, it depends on what they're trying to accomplish. So some of it is fairly standard. If you're in marketing, if you're in business development or sales, you do care about lead gen. And so some of that brand is going to be around lead gen. Some of it, and again, in almost every company, some of it is around hiring. Everybody wants to hire the top performers, the smartest people, the ones who are really going to move things forward for the business. And so people do care about hiring as well. If you're CHRO, you're almost entirely on the hiring side and culture. CHRO, COO typically.
What is CHROs? And pardon
Chief Human Resources Officer.
Okay. Oh, HR. Okay. CHR. Okay. I got, I'm not very good with that.
Well, it's not one of the more popular,
Yeah,
Everybody,
that would make sense if I had seen it written, I probably would have figured it out. But
yeah.
yeah, okay, got it. Okay, so human resource. So, do you get any pushback at any point where people are like, "Hey, that's my personal profile. I don't want to use it for company purposes."
Sure. I mean, we do hear that. And it, I recommend not forcing people to do this. I mean, we've worked with a lot of companies where we're doing the entire executive team,
Mhm.
and there are always going to be one or two people who are just not on board.
Okay.
And sometimes that's the CFO, sometimes that's general counsel. One of the things you want to think about is, are you dealing with people who are very introverted and who are very risk averse?
Mhm.
Those people are the most likely to have, lower comfort levels with being out there in social media. But there are talking points, and I think one of the things that we do on the website is we keep lists of people with different titles who have an excellent LinkedIn presence, so
Mhm.
that we can then point and say, this is what some other CFOs are doing, might
Mhm.
be worth taking a look. And then, of course, if they are planning to IPO, then they are going to be public facing. Any public company, any company that's planning to go public, they they matter. And CFO is one of the top roles that people look at.
Yeah.
So you need to have
Some.
some
Yeah.
public presence.
Yeah. Yeah. So of course, the artist in me thinks like, yeah, but like I would use my profile to talk about my art and talk about my exploits traveling, and I wouldn't want that to get into the way of like, blah blah blah. Do you then recommend people have two profiles?
No, we never recommend having two
I mean,
profiles.
I wouldn't
First
either,
of all,
but yep, yep,
LinkedIn does not encourage that at
yep,
all.
yep, no,
And
no,
second of all, I love having somebody who talks about things that are not business related. It's one of the challenges in crafting a brand is that you want to make the person 3D. It
yeah,
needs to be about more than just their role in the business.
yeah,
And when you have people who are artists or involved in animal rescue or who are talking about their travel,
mhm,
then that helps be relatable.
yeah,
And what we see very often is that the personal posts are the ones that get the most engagement.
yeah.
And so not only does that make the person more relatable, more dimensional, but it also feeds the algorithm.
Yeah. I totally agree with you. I totally agree with you. Which is also, why I always love when, I remember when I took up taking some art classes 4 or 5 years ago. Back then, I was working with a social media person, and she was so excited about my art classes. I'm like, "Why are you so like?" It was like she was taking them, and she's like, "No, no, no! You're going to come up with all these amazing new things to talk about and to show." I'm like, "Oh no, I'm not showing any of my stuff."
You should have art is
No,
very
I did share, and then I started sharing, oversharing, probably even with my photography, and yeah, and I'm about to start now sharing my art because it's gotten a little better. But I was a bloody beginner. I'm like, yeah, I'm kindergarten level, maybe not yet. I'll show my teacher's work. But yeah, I think that multidimensional layering is super, super, super important. And I always tell my clients, if you're not comfortable with it, again, they are mostly on LinkedIn because they want to be selling, right? Because they're much smaller businesses, so a lot of their selling happens on LinkedIn directly. And I would say, like, if you're not so comfortable with it, choose 3 or 5 topics and just stick to those. And that's what you talk about on LinkedIn, right? So just to sort of test the waters, see how the response is, and how it lands on your audience.
yeah.
So yeah, so talking about selling, not selling on LinkedIn. So your crowd is more of the thought leadership um, and the building authority crowd.
Right.
I take it right. So how do you get people's what are sort of the preeminent LinkedIn issues that people come to you come with to you? Like, is it that they have a completely warped sense of what LinkedIn is? Is it like, where's the re-education going on there for you?
If they have a completely warped sense of LinkedIn, we're probably not talking for long.
Okay.
Because my job is not convincing people that LinkedIn is worth their time. It's helping them effectively use LinkedIn.
Okay. So they already know that they need LinkedIn when they come to you. There's not a educational piece about you should be on LinkedIn.
I mean, there are educational pieces.
Yeah.
You know, we do work with a lot of people who've been raised with the idea that they should not put themselves out there.
Yeah.
That if they do good work, good things will come to them, and that should be sufficient. And you know, it's not anymore.
Yeah.
And so we have that conversation. We, you know, and we talk about, for people, you know, and you and I before have talked about video. It's, you know, it can be hard to get comfortable seeing yourself on camera.
Yeah.
And we have conversations around that. You know, how do you get over that hurdle of being comfortable on video? And we also have, you know, there are people who have kind of misconceptions about, well, one of the things I have conversations about a lot right now is networking outside of your network.
That's a conversation I'm having with my clients this month. Yep. Funny.
Yeah. And so, you know, what's the value of that? You know, and then there are people who like don't know what a powerful LinkedIn presence even could be. You know, what does an amazing profile look like, and what are people doing on LinkedIn to, you know, to be effective? And so there is, you know, there's always education that happens, but it's not usually around LinkedIn or not.
Yep. Okay. Yeah. And I think also that I think everybody at this point knows that if you're in business, LinkedIn is the place to be, right? There's just it's that professional.
Even if you're B2C, you still have B2B partnerships. You have B2B relationships that matter. And, you know, we see movie stars on LinkedIn. You know, it's definitely a place you need to be.
I would think so too. And I also think it's probably one of the few places that is still pretty bipartisan. So yeah, for sure.
Yeah, we encourage our clients to avoid politics. It's
not. I would totally agree with
anyone.
Yeah. But I mean, just in terms of not being siloed, that's what I meant. Because I think a lot of the social media platforms now are very siloed, and that excludes one or the other half of the population, at least in the United States, right? Yeah.
Right. And definitely LinkedIn is a kinder, gentler platform. You know, if you look at Facebook, you look at X, it's very polarized. And LinkedIn is where people go to get better at their job. You know, which is a very kind of neutral, friendly environment. People are there to help each other, to stay in touch with each other, to support each other. And that makes it a very comfortable place for most executives.
Yeah. I think everybody comes to LinkedIn with a clear with a clear task in mind. It's not so, like when I suggested to my clients last month, we did a trial month of, as you just mentioned, going outside of our group, right, and sort of organically looking for new people, and not with Sales Navigator, actually doom scrolling on LinkedIn. And the whole concept of doom scrolling on LinkedIn, everybody's like, what? Because it's just not something we do, right? We go on to LinkedIn because we're looking somebody up, we're looking for a specific solution to a problem, or we're engaging with our people. But to just sit there and sort of flip through things, that doesn't happen as much. I mean, some people do, but most people don't. So it was like a whole new concept that I had introduced to. I have a group of 30 people that work with me regularly, and we're in the mastermind and in an engagement group, and it was really interesting to see what came out of that, right? To sort of go outside of our our own little world and see poke our noses out and see what's out there.
Yeah.
So how do you, and talking of this, so how do you see your people? So let's say, they've worked with you, they're now have this beautiful new profile, they kind of have an idea of content. What is that content? How do they use LinkedIn now in a concrete way? Like, are they posting their promotions and whatever the HR or marketing is giving them? What does that look like?
So, if they want to be a good corporate citizen, they are typically reposting what marketing gives them, but they put their own spin on it. And talk about who needs to hear about this, why this is important. It's they package it a little bit.
Yeah.
But the core of the content comes from, what do I want to educate people about? And if, let's say you're in business development and there are things that people need to learn to appreciate the value of what you have created. And that's what you want to be talking about. If you're in hiring mode or you're in HR, then you want to talk about the culture, why this is such a great place to work. And you want to show scenes from corporate volunteer projects or team activities, in the life in the office. You want to talk about values. It's really, crafted for each client, what they want to accomplish, where they want to go, and then who needs to listen to that, who needs to hear that, and what do you need to say to get those people to take the desired action.
And then what does engagement look like for posts like that? Is that engagement within the company silo, or what happens there?
Well, it depends. One of the things that, again, I think you and I have talked about is that decision makers, CEOs, high-level executives typically are not going to engage with your content. And so you may post things that look really meaningful and really valuable, and people are not going to engage. And this doesn't mean they're not going to see it, doesn't mean they're not going to remember it, doesn't mean they're not going to act on it, but they're not going to engage. And I actually had this happen to me recently, where I did this research that I was so excited about. I'm still excited about it, about how female VPs are doing things differently from male VPs.
I saw that post. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. No engagement. And I was like, oh my God, this is so interesting. This is so compelling. But then I thought about it and I was like, who's going to engage with that? Men are not going to post on that. That's like looking for
trouble,
argument, right? And women are not going to post on it. And I'm like, women are posting at twice the rate men are.
Yeah.
Why? What is up with that? Are women getting more out of it, or do we just think about LinkedIn differently? Anyway, so that happens, right? But you're going to hear about it later. People are going to talk to you. They're going to say, hey, I saw that post you did. And so, you can look at engagement, you can look at likes and comments, but the data you really need to look at is the demographics that LinkedIn provides in their analytics, because that'll tell you what companies, what titles, what company size, what geography, who's looking at your post, who's absorbing it, even if they don't engage.
And I think also there's also the in real life engagement that we don't get immediate feedback, because so case in point with these shows is that I co-host another show called An Art for Life, curious conversations about the ways humans make and use art. And Melissa is an artist, and it's her show. I'm just co-hosting it and producing it for her. And she's somewhat of a celebrity in her hometown now in Chattanooga, Tennessee, because of the show. But when we talk, there's every once in a while there's some engagement. Like Dan, I'll get to you in a hot second. He's been posting, like he's been having a conversation with us, And thank you for that, Dan. And the other day she was at an event, and was it the mayor or some higher upper person was like, yes, and then Melissa and her show about art on LinkedIn and blah blah blah. She said she nearly dropped her champagne glass. So, and she says people hit her up about the show all the time. So there is a big audience. It's just not, we're so used to looking at all the metrics as like, oh my God, so and so many views, so and so many likes, so and so many comments, but there are metrics beyond this, right? Which are more important, I think, than anything that happens on the platform.
Yeah, I mean, and that's how people are going to judge LinkedIn at the end of the day is, do people come up to them at conferences or at events and say, hey, I love what you're posting on LinkedIn, that thing that you posted 3 months ago, I really, got a lot out of that. And are you going to get invited into deals?
Exactly.
Are people going to reach out to you? That happens outside of LinkedIn.
Yes.
But it's what happens on LinkedIn that drives it.
Yeah, that tees it up. Yeah. So Dan has an actual question for you. I'm going to put it down here. So Judy, how do you feel about weekend posting? I asked because I find some of my best performances. Yes, that's actually a very good question, Dan. I was going to go there next. So thank you for opening up that door for me. So let's start with this one since we have it in front of our noses.
Dan, you are speaking my language. We target CEOs. And so what I have actually seen is that CEOs late Friday, Saturday afternoon, Sunday afternoon into evening, it's a fabulous time to reach them. They're busy all day long, but like I will get messages on LinkedIn like 11 o'clock at night on a Friday, because they're cleaning up from the week. And then Saturday, Sunday afternoon, they're like at the kids' soccer game. They've been there for an hour and, a little bored, pulling out the phone. Yeah. And Sunday, of course, almost all CEOs are checking LinkedIn. They're preparing for the week ahead. And it's an extremely good time to reach people.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't post on weekends, but we've been eyeing it because for that exact reason. There's a lot of people who start, like I prepare my week always on Sunday afternoon at some point, right? It's I want to start Monday without the nervous breakdown. So yeah, tongue in cheek. Thank you for that question, Dan. That was great. Now there we go. So posting in general. So what is sort of the posting rhythm if you're going like for that whole authority and leadership piece on LinkedIn?
Well, again, it depends on like what's realistic for you. We have a lot of clients who post once a week.
Yeah, I think that's great. Yeah.
And I think that's a very comfortable cadence.
Yeah.
I like to see twice a week. Especially if you really want to move the needle and you have a lot to talk about.
Yeah.
I do 5 times a week, sometimes 6. Okay. And so it really just, but I'm a LinkedIn person.
Right. It's different. Yeah. Yeah. We do 3 times a week. We used to do 5, and I had somebody help me with the writing because it was 5 times a week. And when that person left for a very illustrious Broadway career, which I just could not compete with, I didn't replace her. I hired somebody for other purposes, but I didn't replace that part. So I took on the writing myself, and I went from posting 5 times to 3 times a week. And there was absolutely no drop off in terms of clients, in terms of in the volume of engagement. Because we were consistent, right? And this is also what the algorithm wants to see you be super consistent. So same day, same time, every day, or within the week. And of course, me writing my own content, I think that shifted and engagement as well.
Yeah. Quality is always going to be higher. And I like having space between the posts so they have time to breathe. Because if you have one that's really attracting a lot of attention, you don't want to post again on top of that.
Yeah, and I found also, and the algorithm supports that if you want to give a post that has had good engagement, like for us, it's hard to because we go and everything is planned. I plan like 3 months in advance. Doesn't mean I write everything immediately. Doesn't mean I'm not flexible when things move me, or the world is being moved by something. But I do find sometimes it's hard to react, engage, whether there's a post. Like the next post is already happening while we're realizing that a post is performing well. But then
Right.
what works really well is reposting with, if it's your own, reposting without adding a comment. It basically enlivens the post, and gives it a second life, which then I do Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday, because I post Tuesday through Thursday.
Okay, yeah. So we've been reposting content as well. There's there are a few posts that I just repost every year. Like we have one about LinkedIn profiles for high school students. That
I love it. Yeah.
I know, right? That is very, very popular. And every May, I just repost it because it's like, you know what? If you've got teenagers, this is their summer project. Get up on LinkedIn.
Do you update it?
No, I just repost it. So we have a blog and video on the website about high school profiles, and we redo that like every year or two.
Yep.
But in between, I just repost the original post.
Oh, just a post that leads to it. Yeah, that's
Yeah.
smart. And that's one of the things I love about LinkedIn. Shit doesn't change every 2 seconds, right?
Yeah, especially not at the high school level.
Well,
what
yeah,
high schoolers need to do is pretty solid.
Yeah, yeah. But in general, I think LinkedIn is not one of the platforms that just go crazy with, it, like my friend, and it happens to me too. We both left Instagram, and we both had the same idea. We just executed very differently on it, where I put a 6 grid, she put a 9 grid up to say, like, it's like a little sales page, over 9 images on your Instagram wall, basically saying, come and look for us on our website or LinkedIn, but not here on Instagram anymore. And then they switched the freaking format from square to this sort of half-assed vertical. And so now both our like little mini splash pages are completely ruined. I'm like, that's going to be another Saturday morning gone to the pits. I mean, I love doing this design work, but still, like redoing it, because now it's a different format. It's just like drives me bananas.
Yeah, I mean, LinkedIn changes too. Like LinkedIn is doing vertical format now, and they've added the services page, and they got rid of the welcome video, and now you can have multiple header graphics. I mean, there's stuff,
but it's a very much slower moving. I've actually, dirty little secret, just upgraded to premium, because I had such FOMO over not having that carousel, in the banner. And although I'm happy with my banner, as an ADHD person, it drives me absolutely crazy. I cannot be on my own profile anymore. It just makes me nauseous. It's just too much going on, too distracting.
I mean, that may or may not last.
Right. That's the other thing, right? It may or may not last. So what are the sections that you focus or focus on? I mean, do you focus on everything with your clients, or are there like the 3 top things on a LinkedIn profile that you just must have, unnegotiable? Like, where do you have sort of that kind of setup, or is it just everything gets taken under the magnifying glass and we're going to town?
Well, we give them the option. Yeah. Some people want the complete makeover, and then we're going to work on every section of the profile and use every single one that they can possibly use.
Yeah.
We also give them the option of having a light version, where we focus on the most important sections. And for us, that starts with the headline. Because, I like to think about the headline as the subject line of your profile. It's what people are going to click on to come and view your profile. So if you put effort into anything, put effort into the headline.
Yeah, totally.
And, yeah. And the about is where we put stories. We really work hard at crafting the about section. Featured is where you decide, if I could control the first search page of Google search results about me, What would I want people to find? And that's where you put that. And then your current job description is where you tell people what you're doing now. And especially for consultants, it's really important to have that. For consultants, again, I would leverage the services page. That's like a double featured section. You've got all these links that you can include, all these calls to action. And then for people who want to be findable, the skills is a really good place to embed keywords, especially now that you can have 100.
Yeah. 100 skills, right? Wow. I'm writing this down. I mean, not that I'm recording this. I'll have a transcript, but I'm like, ooh. So I haven't even dealt with the services page yet, I must confess. So I'm hearing from you. I ought to.
I would. I mean, it's fun. It gives, you've got some short text where you can take kind of a different approach than what you've said elsewhere, and you've got links.
Yep. Definitely going to check it out. Yeah. What about recommendations?
It's always nice to have recent recommendations, especially for a consultant, I think, or a coach. It's not one of the critical parts of the profile for us, but it's a nice to have.
Yeah. So what you haven't addressed is the visual. So I would imagine that being corporate, you probably have a professional headshot, right? That's probably less of a problem in your world, or?
Well, it can be. So I definitely recommend professional headshot. We have seen a major boost in profile views when you upgrade the headshot.
Yeah.
And you wouldn't necessarily think, but we increased profile views by 32% one time, just by changing the headshot. And the headshot was not bad before.
Yeah.
But if you think about it, people are looking at your headshot to gauge, like, how serious is this person? How, at what level are they? And so you don't want to be frowning in it. I talked to this one guy who was frowning. He looked really grumpy in his headshot, and I was like, this is hurting you. And I said, what was going on when because the company did his headshot, and he said, well, I was late for something, and I was just really annoyed that I had to stand in line for the photographer. And I was like, oh my God, go get another headshot.
Yeah. Or I mean, nowadays you can get one for from $45 to $1,000 with an AI based, like they take your photo, and
you can get free AI. But I have to tell you, I played with it. It does not look like me. Looks great. It does not look like me.
Well, I've been playing with it a little bit, and there's two women that I know of that's the $1,000 version, who really are excellent at really taking. It's basically, 1,000 is still a lot of money, or 1,200 or whatever it is. But imagine you had to go for a full shoot, like, especially us consultants and coaches who need like a whole series of photos to also put on your website, etc., and sort of need more also of that lifestyle photography done. That a good photographer to do that with you is easily $5,000 and a day of your time. Then there is another day of your time where you're nervous, don't know what to wear, and have to rifle through your wardrobe. Then there's probably another couple of $1,000, another 2 days where you go shopping. And if you take all of that, the $1,200 for a professional person to take existing photos of you, make you age appropriate, put on the wardrobe you actually want to be wearing that you didn't find in the color that you wanted at the store, and still make you look like you, is well worth it, right? And then of course there's just the $45 version where it's just a headshot, where they can age you, they can make you look appropriate for what you should be looking right now, so you don't end up being a bad date. So yeah, there's nowadays just no reason not to have a good headshot on your profile.
Yeah, it's very important.
Yeah. And then what about the banner?
I like to have a branded banner.
Yep.
And especially for coaches and consultants
Yeah.
and creators, you want something that tells people part of your story.
Yeah.
And that could be as simple as, if you've written a book or two, have the books in the banner.
Yeah.
Or it could be something that's very creative. We did a blog post with a bunch of really good examples that's on the website, and you can get lots of ideas looking at other people's banners.
Yeah, I love the emails that you've been sending out with, great profiles. And I looked at some of them, and again, they're relevant to your audience. But I thought, what a great idea! I might have to copy that. What a great idea because I mean, it's all out there, right? And to do a case study on people who do a really good job, be it visually or content wise or both. Yeah, yeah,
Right.
yeah.
Yeah, the visuals make a difference. That's what really elevates your profile.
Yeah. I mean, sometimes I look at profiles and my standard reaction is like, oof, it's just like, oof, I mean, yikes, I had a client who came to me who had no profile at all. And while we were working on everything, all I did is just take one of her colors, from her branding kit, and make a solid background banner. And that alone, she got so much engagement just from doing that alone, right? Taking away that gray blue affair that LinkedIn has. And I just, her colors are sort of in the blue beige world. So I put just a cream beige color that looked nice with the outfit she was wearing in her headshot, made all the difference in the world. And there was like no design involved, right? There was just a color.
You can do something very nice in Canva.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh yeah. I've ditched Photoshop a long time ago. A lot less cursing going on at this desk since I discovered Canva over
I have to admit, I am a words person. I am not a graphics person, but even I can use Canva.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I love Canva. I mean, I still use Photoshop for, my big prints that need to be prepared for printing and stuff like that. My photo work, but not for my everyday graphic work for the company. We are way over time. Judy, this has been fabulous. Thank you so much. Always love geeking out over LinkedIn, and we, I would have had more questions, but I think we're at a good point right now to say goodbye while we're still on a high. And just a quick answer to Anthony, who asked whether she can listen to a replay. So this is the beauty of live. This is going to live forever and ever and ever on my LinkedIn profile, and is not going anywhere unless I delete it, but there's no reason to do so. So Antonia, you will find this under this link forever, and I can also send you the direct link in the DM if that makes your life easier. So for everybody who has been following us here live and who will be watching the replay, thank you for doing so. This is still ongoing. This is not dead. So ask your questions, your thoughts on LinkedIn, and we'd love to hear how you use LinkedIn for your business and what you learned from this show. So thank you for listening, and we'll see you all next month with a new edition of LinkedIn Straight Talk for coaches and creators. Thank you so much, Judy.
Thank you.